Hey guys, and welcome to the Power Bros. Today we're going to be doing a video on changing the handbrake cable. Now this is quite a common thing on most cars. The cable itself, it rusts over time, and then sometimes you'll pull the handbrake up and it will feel funny, or when you've got to let it off it will feel like it's pulling down on one side, and that could either be the caliper or the cable. Now for me it's the cable, so we will jump into getting it resolved. Right, so what we'll do is we need to start by loosening the cable at the front. So the easiest thing to do is lift the seat and push it as far forward as you can. They're a bit of a pain in the butt, and then that gives us a little bit of a working space behind the car. Now what we're going to be doing, just get the camera closer, is basically we need to go into the pocket where your cup holder will be. So that is this pocket here, and inside there, that is where the handbrake cables join onto the handbrake. Now you'll notice this is always a good giveaway as if there's an issue, and let me just zoom out and show you. Ignore all the crap in my car. So basically, if you have an issue, sometimes it will look like this, which means one side's been doing a lot of the work for a long time. So both cables are the same size, but for whatever reason one side has now decided to seize, and it's stuck in this place and it won't go anywhere. So it's either making the brake bind or it doesn't come on at all. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by loosening this. Now that's a 10mm, and we'll loosen it sort of all the way to the edge, not off, just towards the end, and then that's enough for us to allow to get the cables out of this groove here, and then we can pull them backwards. So we'll start by doing that, and then once I've done that I'll come back to you and we'll get underneath the car and get the cables out. Loosen it, guys. This is what it will look like. Excuse the shaky cameras. It will be just these two ends here, just loose, and then we'll pull them through these some tubes just here, which will pull it out into the back. So we'll get underneath the car and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So what I'll do is I'll point out the handbrake. So basically this ball on top here, and this is your cable, which you have to take this little sort of U-shaped bracket off here, and then it goes into the arm just there. I don't know if you can just see past the drop link. It goes into the arm and then it comes back out the arm, just down the other end there, and then it goes up into a tube. So what we'll do is, now it's long, we can actually, should be able to, if it's, this one's quite, this is the seized one. I'm going to be replacing the pair just because I don't want the same happening on the other one. I'll just go and get some grips, and what we'll be able to do is we'll be able to pull this ball upwards, we'll be able to hook it out, and then we can take this bracket off here, and then we'll be able to pull that out through the arm. Now that is a bit fiddly. Sometimes it's a bit easier if it's higher up in the air and you take the wheel off, but I'm going to try and do it in the most difficult way possible, because then that way you should be able to do it without any issue at all. So I'll just go and grab a couple of tools, just literally a big screwdriver, and that'll get us going for the time being. You just need it down just enough that you can turn the ball. There we go. This thing is going to forever fight me. But this is what you'll be up against if your cable is seized. Right, so the ball is off. Now that's loose, we can take the rubber off, which will just stop it getting lost, and we can pull it out of that housing in the caliper, and then the wire will come out with it. So now that's loose, we need to pull it through the arm. Now this is the fun part, because it is a bit of a pain in the bum. In the arm, I'll just show you. So it goes in through this slot here, through there. So there's a hole in the arm, and then it comes out a little bit further down, in there, where it has that nice rubber grommet. So what we'll do is, because this has got no end on it and it's nice and straight, we'll go up to that end there, and I will just pull it and it should just pull out. It takes a bit of fiddling to get the old rubber off, but it shouldn't be too bad. I'll set this up so you can see what we're doing. That should give you a good view. Right, so like I said before, if you pull this out a little bit, that pulls the grommet off, and then you can just pull it. What you might need to do is go up the other end and just feed in that metal shoulder, because that usually tends to get caught on the end. So I'll go and do that now. Yeah, so it's just caught as it's going through the hole a little bit. Just need to try and get it through straight as it goes. There we go. Then we'll come back to this side. It is easier if there's two of you, but you know me, I like to struggle on my own. So that is the cable out. Now the other end just goes into the car, so it will go, but it is a bit fiddly. You may need to go into the car and just feed the end through the sleeve, because it's got that sort of shoulder on it, which goes in that U-shaped clamp that we undone to start with. Right, so I've just pushed that in now, so that should come. There we go. It's just caught on something, not sure what. Maybe on the bend of this pipe, because it is a bit on the crusty side. What we might have to do is push it back into the car, and then I'll cut it and pull it the other direction, because what I don't want to do is damage the pipe that goes through the car. Okay, so for ease of pulling it out, what I've gone is I've gone inside and I've cut the end of it off, the bit that goes into the handbrake cable. So now when we pull it, it should just pull straight out. There you go, and she's out. So that is the old handbrake cable removed on the driver's side, and we'll get it all prepped and we'll put the new one back in again. So now a good other thing to mention is it is always worth comparing them before you try and fit the new one. Now obviously if you pull the old one out, you haven't got much of a choice anyway, because you've already got it on the floor. But just have a visual underneath, make sure that what you've been given looks exactly right. I bought mine from Euro Car Parts. I bought the Pagid ones. They come in a bag like this. It doesn't say what it's for, it just gives you a part number, but you can check online and they're pretty good if you trust your local one. They're pretty good, and they were £34 using their online discount code for the pair, so £17.50 each, something like that. But it's well worth replacing the pair, because otherwise one's going to be stronger than the other. Now obviously once we pulled this out, I had a bit of a fight, because, and this is why it's worth comparing, because then when you go to fit the new one you don't have a horror story. Now this, I'm assuming this is probably still the original one. I compared them together and I noticed that there was this collar. Now this was actually snapped off inside the tube, and you can see I've sort of mangled it a little bit trying to get it out, because it's an absolute pain in the butt to get out. But basically, yeah, that was stuck in the metal tube. So I just got a screwdriver and a pair of long nose pliers, and I managed to pry down the outside of it and then pull it out. So we've obviously got the ball that I cut off the caliper side, and there is also somewhere the ball, this is the one I cut off inside the car, and the caliper side, so they're completely different, so it'll be easy enough to work out which way around it goes. And then you've got the rubber which come on the, that's caliper end, and you've got the clip which you'll need to remove and reuse, so don't throw that, and that goes once inside the caliper. That goes either side like that, just to hold it in situ on the car. So what we'll do now is we'll go in reverse, and we'll get this pushed back into the car through that metal tube, which I'll show you in a second, and then we have the fun job of feeding this part through the rear arm, and then we can connect it back up again, and then we'll get the fun job of doing it again on the other side. So I'll get you set up so you can see the tube that I'm on about. Okay guys, so the tube I'm on about is this one up here, this rusty looking thing, and we'll feed in our new cable, nice and gentle. Try not to push too hard because you don't want to damage it. Obviously mine is somewhat fragile. Just feed it in nice, and then what it should do is that metal sleeve should then pucker up and just fit into it nice, and then it has a sort of a stop where it's finished, and that is it. So now what we'll do is we need to route the rest of it and push it through the arm. So I'll try and get you set up again so you can see it. It's a bit of a pain in the butt because I've got it jacked up on stands. I'm not in a garage unfortunately, which is where I like to do these sorts of jobs. Cool, so now comes the fun part. It's always more fun to do it on the floor, isn't it? Makes you appreciate it more. So there's a hole here where I've put my thumb, and what you'll have to do now, this is a fun job because what you've got to try and do is fish this ball when it gets to the other end, because it won't just come out on its own, because that would be far too easy. So get it in most of the way if it will go, and hopefully that is about there. What I might need to do is just come back and try again. I'll just go up the other side and do that end if I can find it. Right, so I've actually gone past, so what I will do is come underneath the car and just pull it back a little bit. It's easy enough. If you put your finger against the hole, you can just feel as the ball comes back. Now if you're lucky, it might come out on its own accord if you give it a wiggle. So now I'm the other side of the hole, which is typical. There you go. So I've got it out the other side, and you have to sort of put your finger against it just to get that collar through, and then that will feed through nicely, making sure you put it the right side of the brake pipe, and then you get the job of putting this rubber in, which I normally put a little bit of spray on because it does not go in easy, and then you push in one end and you can just sort of tap the other end and it will go in. But we'll come back to doing that in a minute. Let me just go and get some spray. I've got this lovely WD-40 with a nice nozzle in, so I don't even have to look at it to do it. Where's our cable? There it is. So yeah, just a little spray just to get us in, just to make it a little bit slippery on getting it in, and then you just push down on the top so you get the top in, and then usually the bottom will follow with a bit of force. There we go. So that's popped in all nice and flush. Wipe away the excess, and then that is in. The best thing to use is some sort of grease. WD-40 is probably not great on rubbers, but a tiny little spray isn't going to do any harm. No more so than the crap that was already in it. So we'll get replaned in the other end. I'll take you up to the caliper and I'll show you how it goes in. Now this should be like a dream, because obviously you've got a new cable, so you can pull it backwards and forwards now. I've made the mistake of not trying to feed it up through the hole before I pushed in the rubber the other end, because I'm filming and I'm not thinking about what I'm doing. So best thing to do, feed this through first, then push your rubber in the other end. Otherwise you may just have a bit of a fight on your hands. It's not too hard. What you've got to try and do is get that in that guide slot. Now it is doable, it's just a bit fiddly when you're laying on the floor, you don't have your hands where you want them. The rubber from the handbrake cable here, this rubber here, was getting caught on the shoulder of this, so it just didn't want to come up. So now we're going to get our clip to retain that, which of course you kept in a safe place because you knew you were going to need it again. And then you just literally push that on and you'll feel it going to a point, so it goes underneath the shoulder and just on top there, and then that's it, locked in. And then all you've got to do is spin the ball round to the other side. which is easier with more length. It's always more fiddly when you're filming for some reason. It's like it waits for you. There we go. And then that just sits back in there, ready to go. And then what we'll have to do once we've done both sides is we'll go into the car, connect it back up, and then we will adjust the handbrake accordingly. We'll go for 3 or 4 clicks, and then that should operate nicely. Then we won't, when we put our handbrake on, have that issue, which is what I currently had on this side at the moment, because the cable had seized out where we'd replaced the rear arms. So I had to order some, because for some reason they didn't have any handbrake cables in on the time, which is a pain in the butt. So what I'll do, obviously you've seen how it's done, I'll do the other side and then I will show you how to tighten it up. Okay, so like I was saying earlier, this shoulder here is what snapped off what we had, so that you may need to pull that out depending on what it is. Take a 5-minute break, enjoy it, because it is a proper fiddly job. But that's all done, so all I need to do now is jump in the car and we'll finish it off by adjusting it and putting it back together in the car. So to finish the job off, all you have to do is you get those 2 metal shrouds and just hook them through the slot. I don't know if you can see there, you can't really. There's a slot out of the whole side, and all you do is just literally feed the cable through and then it pulls backwards. And then all you want to do is take out, hear that? You just want to take away the slack of the cable. There won't be much, but you just want to, and then you can just check versus the click. So there's like 6 clicks. So we'll give it a little tight and just try and get rid of that slack out of the cable, and then that should be perfect. Okay guys, so now that's all done, we've done it as tight as we can. It's taken out the slack, which hold it in the other hand. So there's no slack there, and that is about 4 clicks, and that is absolutely tight. Now what I've done to check that is, obviously you do this up clockwise, same as you would a normal bolt, just to get rid of the slack. And then what I did, which is a good little test, is just come out and spin the wheels and just make sure they spin freely, because otherwise you could do it up a little bit too tight and then it might just sort of bind on the brakes a little bit the whole time, which obviously you don't want. So they spin free, and then just quickly give it another 4 clicks, and then you come out to the car and they should be tight on. Check both sides. Once you're happy, what I would do is just give it a visual inspection. Obviously we can do that now to show you what we've done. So check everything as it should be. So the ball is up in the top, the rubber sleeve is all the way down, you've got your clip in holding it in. And then if we go over to the other side, it's going to be easier to see from here, your rubber that we've pushed in is fine. And then we'll go to the other end of the car, well, to the middle, sorry, and we'll check that pipe where we've pushed the cable up into. So like I said, ignore the rust, wait for it to focus. There you go. So you can see that the cable goes in into that sleeve nicely, so everything is as it should be. Again, we'll check the rubber the other side. Yep, it's in there as it should be. But yeah, so once you're happy with it guys, that is the job done. I hope you found that helpful. The same would apply, to be honest, if you wanted to adjust your handbrake. So if your handbrake was the handle was coming right the way up, but both of them were working fine, just come in here and give this a little go, do it up a little bit, try and take some of the slack out of the cable, and follow the same routine. Check that your wheels are spinning when they're free and they're not spinning when they're not supposed to be, and then yeah, that is adjusting your handbrake and fitting new cables. Hope you've enjoyed it, hope you found it helpful. That is another video from the Parrot Bros. Bye for now.